started making book ASMR. So like one of my first videos was about books. So yeah, I need to get back into the flow of still chatting to you guys about books as well. I just finished a really, really good book. I want to say by far my favourite book of this year. And I spend my morning sobbing like a baby, so I want to talk about that. So I'm going to go through some of my recent reads over the past 4 months of 2026, and talk about them, talk about some books that I like, some of the books I don't like. Let's get into it, let's get into the ramble. At the very start of the year, I finished a dark romance trilogy that broke my heart apart. So that was the Edge of Darkness series by Lee Rivers. I had the first book in this series, I think, Insatiable, on my 10 before the end last year, and I kind of just got hooked. I ended up finishing the trilogy instead of continuing on with my 10 before the end. I am like a major mood reader. I only really read things that I get the vibe to read, or yeah, like I can't line up the next books I'm gonna read because I very rarely will stick to it. So I kind of expected something like that to happen. But this series was so heartbreaking and dark, and it tore me apart to read this series. So definitely trigger warnings. This is a very, very dark story, very depressing, and very addictive at the same time. The main characters go through so much throughout this book series, and there's so many layers of chaos, but I loved all of the characters throughout this, and I think you just have such like a deep sympathy for all of them and the horrors that they all go through. And I'm probably not selling this unless you're used to like reading dark books, but yeah, if you like to travel to the depths of hell and to the abyss in your books and come out with a broken heart and tears on your face, then this series is really, really good. It is so dramatic as well, and like very crazy and over the top and hectic, but I kind of love my dark romance reads like that. I think most of them are very over the top and excessive. So yeah, it's to be expected, but I'd heard so many things about this book that I'm glad that I finally picked it up. So this book follows Cade and Stacey. They are the main couple, and Cade and Stacey had a relationship, and then they broke up. Very, very messy breakup, but Cade could not get over Stacey, and he basically just lurks and watches her over the following years, doesn't let anyone come close to her, and if they do, let's just say they don't survive afterwards. So he is like very morally grey. He is a very, very dark main character, and everything that unfolds from there, you see like flashbacks of their relationship and what they used to have, and you kind of start to piece together what happened and why their relationship fell apart and what happens afterwards. She is also, Stacey is best friends with his twin sister, and they both have like a little group of friends each, so the side characters are very essential in this plot. There is also a storyline behind Cade's past and his upbringing with his dad, who's now in prison. That's all kind of another layer to it, but throughout the 3 books it like gradually just gets darker and darker insane. So buckle up if you pick up this series. So that was how I started my year. It's great. After that, I moved on to a series that I've heard a lot about. I saw it compared to a series that I really like, and this is the female. I don't know what they're. Oh, it's just the female series. So this is a fantasy, dark romance. I don't know what tags this would have. So this is about a dystopian world in which birth rates are declining rapidly, and they have been because the female population is very, very scarce now, which has led there to be like facilities and restrictions on having, like, if a girl is born, they basically need to be like put into the system so that she can have kids, and this usually comes under kind of like ownership, and this series actually has like a lot more plot to it than that, which I enjoyed. Like the initial idea of this, like our main character is a human, and the human population is really, really small and very sought after from a lot of the like demons and fantasy creatures in this world. So she is found because her parents have been hiding her since she was born. She's been living in their like a little underground hatch, only allowed to come out when it was deemed safe. And this really reminded me of the show The 100, where Earth is no longer, well, it hasn't been safe to live on. So everyone's up living in space, and obviously there is limited resources, oxygen, food, etc. So there needs to be limits on how many children you have, and there is one of our main characters in that show, Octavia. She has to live also kind of like under the floor, because she has an older brother, and they would be punished for having a second child and keeping the second child. So that really reminded me of the idea in this book and kind of drew me in. So Charlotte is found and captured. She is sold at an auction to these 3 demons, and their story kind of unravels from there. That is like only scratching the surface. That's kind of what I went in thinking that this was about, that kind of like 100 declining population or like restricted population idea, and then having to survive after you've been captured. But there is, if you continue the series, the later books, which I did, I read them all kind of begrudgingly. I don't think I enjoyed these books that much. Probably would be like a 3-ish star rating for the series, but it was kind of one of those moments where you're just so like intrigued. I very rarely DNF books. I love finding out what happens, even if I feel like I'm like maybe not 100% fulfilled with the series afterwards. I hate not knowing. That's why I rarely don't finish books, because it doesn't sit right in my brain if I don't know what happens. So I continued, and there's a lot of twists. It's quite messy. There turns into this like political rebellion situation. The fantasy kind of political elements come into the book a bit later on as well. I really love when there's wars and chaos among moments, like the pacing was just a bit off for me, and I don't know, like I think the ending sequence was fun, but I'm pretty sure there's other books in this, and I'm just not really interested in continuing the series. So compared to the last dystopian, you know, that it managed to hook me, but this one I don't think I'll be continuing, which is a shame because I really want to read more dystopian worlds. That's like the books that I loved growing up and really got me into reading, so I just want to relive that. So this is about a population that has moved underground after there was a nuclear disaster on the Earth's surface. So it is, no one can go out onto the Earth's surface without major suits and stuff because of the radiation. So the large majority of the population is underground under very strict ruling. So our main character is essentially thrown into a prison. This prison that you basically will never leave, is apparently for the worst people in this society, but this government that is ruling all of these people under the earth has very strict rules on the information that its people have access to. History books, books in general, or a lot of them are contraband or restricted. Information is changed, so they have full control over the information that these people have access to. And people who know too much or who have access to these things and are caught with them, who do bad things, they're all thrown into this prison. And our main character is found with a poetry book, simply a book of poetry, and she is thrown into prison for it. So that's kind of where the story begins. I had saw a lot of people talking about this, and then when I kind of looked it up, it relies heavily on a romance element between her and one of the guards in the prison. This like the most ruthless guard. Like she's this prisoner, and it leans into this heavily. The romance felt super weak for me in this book, and it just kind of like happens. It didn't really, I don't know, I just didn't have like any attachment to it. I didn't feel like it even was really necessary. I don't know, it just wasn't for me personally, this book or this series, so won't be continuing, but I have saw a lot of people love it, so just a bit of a shame. Of course, I had to tune into the hype of heated rivalry. Now, I've not watched the show. I only knew that this was a sports romance going into it, and that was it. That was it. So I didn't really have any expectations, I guess, but I picked this up. I just wanted to figure out what the hype was about, you know, I wanted to be included. But as much as I enjoyed this love story, I will say I don't think there was really a rivalry, nor do I think it was heated. Because if you've read this, you'll know from the prologue, like, there's no rivalry, you know? So that was my main grudge with this one, is that it kind of sells itself on there being this rivalry between these two opposing teams and their captains, their best players. I just didn't really buy it, didn't buy into this. space that it's very hard to do so in this ice hockey world. It's not really a thing to be gay and be out. So him coming to terms with everything and just coming into himself, it was just so good. And of course we have our other main lead. Elliot is so good in this book. The way his relationship like evolves himself when he is falling for Shane. Love that. Absolutely love that. But I do think that the rivalry aspect was weak, and that they just were not rivals, like only on the ice and the perception of everyone else, I guess. But like the book doesn't really focus on that. Maybe the show does more. I just don't think that they leaned into it enough, personally. I think there are other books that follow this couple in this series as well. I don't know if I'll read them though. I just felt like it was very long for what I got out of it. So, I don't know. I'll wait and see how I feel. I'm happy to have like tried it, you know, to see what the hype was like. A nice story, a nice love story. Okay, my next book is, well, it's a fanfic. I started reading Draco and Hermione fanfics last year, started reading Manacled last year, and then I read The Auction, which was so good. I love that version of their story. I love that Draco version. The like slow burn longing and that one, top tier. But the ones that I'd heard the most were those two and Secrets and Masks. So the next one I was like, I'm gonna read Secrets and Masks. I jumped into this only really knowing that this was again following them after the war, and that Hermione is captured by Voldemort's side, by Draco. So I'm going in pretty blind otherwise. This was quite possibly the longest piece of work I've ever read. This was so long, like so long. I don't know if it was like 1,400-ish pages on ebook. It only told me like the location, it didn't actually tell me page numbers because it was just like a downloaded thing. But when I looked it up, it said something about 1,400-ish pages. It took me so long to get into this, like maybe about 50% of the way through, until I kind of like fell into flow. Before that I was really struggling. It felt super slow, very like descriptive about every little detail and every day that goes by. I just wasn't hooked. There wasn't much going on. The final 50%, the second half of the book, insane, guys. I cried my little eyes out at the end of this. It was a really interesting ending. So, spoiler alert, if you've not read Secrets and Masks, I'm gonna talk about the ending, so skip forward. But basically has main character deaths. So Draco and Hermione and Draco's dragon all die. Like the big three, essentially. Like such key characters, and I've only read a few books that have actually killed off the main characters, like actually not fake dead and they come back to life, actually dead, like they're gone. And I couldn't wrap my head around it, that like when Hermione died, I was like, oh, like I just refuse to believe that my characters are actually dead, especially in a fantasy realm, because so many authors don't actually go through with the deaths. They just kill them off for a minute and then they're back. That's what happens all the time. But this author actually followed through, killed off Hermione, and then Draco gets revenge and kills Voldemort, and then he dies from his injuries from that battle. And the epilogue of this is split into two. So we get the first epilogue with the land of the living, the people and Draco's family and his friends that are left behind and living on without them post-war, what their lives are like. And then afterwards we see a kind of afterlife with Draco, Hermione, Draco's parents are there, his dragon's there, and I thought this was like such an interesting way to, like, without actually killing them off, she kind of did bring them back. So I guess in a sense they were kind of like brought back a little bit, but it's this bittersweet ending because the land of the living is kind of continuing on without your main characters. They never got to survive the war and reap the benefits of the rebellion that they fought for, and getting rid of Voldemort and all of his cronies and the evil that they brought. They never got to survive and enjoy the life that they wanted to have for themselves. So at the same time it is this bittersweet thing that they will forever be like lingering and having to watch the people that they love live on and not be there. But it was like a really nice way to give the reader, because I was so upset reading this, like I felt so much closure to ending the book. It was so nice. It was such a nice way to do it, and like a really tasteful and soft way. So I liked it. I have saw a lot of people, saying mixed reviews on whether or not this is like a happy ending. Essentially, I would say that they did get a happy ending. But yeah, people are going to discuss that and maybe disagree. It is bittersweet, but I think that was kind of just inevitable when you read the story and you figure out everything that's happening. Like, I didn't really see a way out of it, so yeah. But this definitely tested me. Like, I had to push through a lot of points. But I think the lengths that this is described and thought out really, it makes the ending and the final battle and the deaths that much more impactful, because you kind of live every day with Hermione and with Draco throughout the war and throughout all of their plans evolving, finding out about, wanting to join the Order and go against Voldemort. Everything is just covered in so much detail in the bulk of the book that it makes the ending so much more impactful. So I think actually this is going to be published into a real book. So I'm excited to see what it's like and how the story's kind of improved and shifted. If the pacing, because it was quite repetitive here and there, but wow, like this story was really, really good. And even though it doesn't come close to the auction, which is my favourite, I Mass's least liked series, and I can't figure out why. So going into this, like picking up this series, I was very, very hesitant. I did not think I was going to like this, but oh my god, loved. I can appreciate why a lot of people can't get into it, because the first 100 pages are super complicated and wordy, very descriptive about the hierarchies, the fantasy world in general, world building, also like a bit of history in there as well. It's very complicated, I can appreciate that, but I think this is such a cool story. I was super satisfied in the end, like heartful but also broken at the same time, like so many mixed emotions. The ending, the final like 150 to 40 pages, like actually insane. You genuinely don't get a minute to breathe in this book at all, and I loved that personally. I think it was so good. So I feel bad for anyone who DNFs this and doesn't get to appreciate that. When I got these, I didn't realise how long they all were. This is just shy of 800 pages. I started this, I think, last Saturday. It's now Thursday, so I could not put this down. This was so good. I sprinkled a little bit of the audiobook here and there as well, which I really enjoyed. They've got a dramatised audiobook of this. But I think Sarah J. Maas does a really good job of describing everything in detail in this without it being too clunky. I personally really enjoyed it, and I felt like I had a very vivid image of everything. And I was kind of preferring to just not listen to the audiobook and just have my reading playlist, my reading like fantasy playlist on while I was reading it. I had an absolute blast. I loved the characters in this. I think Bryce is really, really fierce and super brave. I felt super attached to like our core characters in this, which made some portions of this book quite difficult to get through, but I adored this. I want everyone to read Crescent City, because I feel like you're missing out if you're not. So this is an urban fantasy, and it follows our main character Bryce. It is mainly Bryce that we follow, but this is third person, and you follow a few different characters throughout. But Bryce, Hunt, and a little bit of Ruin, who is our brother, enjoyed the kind of switch up at certain points. It was kind of necessary, especially at the end of this book, where certain characters are in different locations, so you kind of need to be like jumping between to get their reactions. So well done. Hooked me, genuinely. I was hooked from like chapter 2. so excited. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Also, I got the hardbacks to these because look how beautiful these covers are. There's also art in here. Stunning. How beautiful. These are by far Sergi Mas's most beautiful covers. Stunning. So, if you've not read Crescent City, please pick up this book because it is so good. Like, I can't describe to you how much I enjoyed this journey. The world building, all the characters. So good, so enjoyable. I'm really excited to read the rest of this series. I think I'm going to give myself a little break because this was like